Just very niche builds. And here we go. Spawning in the top left-hand corner of Oceanborn, we have the South Korean Terran player representing Shopify Rebellion. It is ByuN. And spawning in the bottom right-hand corner, we have his opponent. We have the American Protoss representing Maturino esports. Just look down nice, 2-0. It is Astrea. We go. And it is important, I think, that I mentioned that going into something like Glaive Adepts is very niche against Terran, just because Astrea, he's a very unique player and he's very unorthodox. He can play standard, don't get me wrong. He can play standard, he can play macro, but typically he's a very aggressive player, and I'm sure that isn't going to change here. Meanwhile, ByuN, he does go the long way around. He avoids the main scouting path of the Protoss, so he's going for an eBay block, but Astrea, he is on the low ground. He does spot the SCV, and he is going to be able to get on top of this eBay. Earlier today, we were casting some of those some TvP matchups. We were able to cast Nina versus Kellizer, if I recall correctly, in ESL Masters Americas, and we saw these eBay blocks just wreak havoc. And again, they have been very popular recently in this matchup. It is why we see Astrea very active here on the low ground, just making sure he forces the cancel and then is able to expand on location. Now, if Astrea wasn't on the low ground when he was, then we wouldn't have seen a cancel here. We would have almost completed the eBay, we would have gotten away, and then Astrea would have been forced to expand elsewhere, here at the linear base location or the triangular third location. And that gives the opportunity for ByuN to just wreak havoc and be hyper aggressive and pull the Protoss apart. Alas, Astrea is able to avoid that scenario. So again, it's why we often see Protoss players skip their probe scouts and leave their probe on the low ground just to make sure that they're able to get their expansion up and running, just because of how prevalent eBay blocks have become. As we are going for a sentry first. This is another kind of new addition to the repertoire of Protoss this year, is the sentry openers. With these openers, we can of course go for hallucinated scout across the map to try to get a read of what's going on. As we can see, oh, we have a 3 racks out of ByuN. Oh my god. A very old school, very aggressive build here out of ByuN. The reason why this opener here from Protoss is very new to the matchup and very new to this year specifically is because at the start of the year there was a patch. Even before the new map pool, at the very start of the year there was a patch that did actually change the damage point of sentries. It means you can actually kite with them a lot easier against specifically Reapers, and that means sentry openers are much more commonplace. And here we go, hallucination is moving out. Is going to be scouting the natural and ideally the main. ByuN, meanwhile, is in position here on top of the ramp, looking to deny any kind of scout. Pushing up manually, I should say. But here comes hallucination, a massive scout for Astrea. He does see all 3 Raxes, and upon seeing this, he can react, he can respond. Again, 3 racks is quite an aggressive build. The way that this works is that ByuN is going to be moving out. He's going to be hitting a stim timing. He should be pushing out before medevacs. We now have a factory on the way, soon to be a medevac as well for, soon to be a starport as well for medevacs for some sustain. And again, that's just going to be leading into the mid game. This is not all in by any means, but just a very aggressive build overall. And Astrea, he's aware of it. We can approach this in a couple of different ways. We do have a robo follow-up, and I do like this from Astrea. With a robo tech choice here, it does mean we can get into fast Colossus, and fast Colossus used to be like the stock standard, the meta way to just completely shut this down back when 3 Raxes were much more commonplace. And there it is, there's the bait. So just to get into this, because this was scouted so early on, we can see that Astrea was able to throw down his tech as a reaction. With that, we're getting into a safety immortal, into robotic spay, into Colossus. The downside here is that Astrea, he doesn't have map control, so he can't be active out here to slow down the army because he doesn't have Blink because it wasn't a Twilight Council, and he doesn't have Phoenixes because it wasn't a Stargate. So Astrea, he has to sacrifice map control here, he has to sacrifice his map presence in favor of taking up very quickly and getting to the power spike that is Colossi. The upside is that Astrea should be safe. Like, this bio push, by the time it gets across the map, we will have a Colossus, and the Colossus is just gonna have its way with this Marine army. Meanwhile, Stim is done, and because ByuN got scouted, he doesn't push in. Meanwhile, the Observer comes in for a follow-up scout, does get eyes on the starport, is aware of the medevacs. ByuN, he doesn't hit his first Stim timing. He's going to be biding his time, he's going to be building up his army, and he's working on a double medevac timing instead. Now this means that his army is going to hit later, but it's going to have more sustain with medevacs, of course. It means that every Stim isn't going to hurt him. It means that he can Stim a couple more times and actually maintain control of his army. The downside is that it all just got scouted, and Astrea, he's just chilling back at home. We have a third base on the way. First Colossus has arrived. We have a shield battery. We have an overcharge. Now, this army is a little bit more mobile with the medevacs. We could try to maybe bypass the Colossus and go into the main. But even so, it's not that much room for the Colossus to traverse, and Astrea, he should be able to keep up. There you go, double drop is coming in. Probe is going to see this, actually. Astrea, he does spot this at a time. He is splitting up his forces. He's keeping his Colossus here at the third, especially because ByuN, he could go either the main or the third base. Speaking of, there we go, he heads towards the third, and the Colossus is in position. The drop is forced back. Now, thankfully, ByuN hasn't lost anything yet, so the drop has failed, this is true, but he still maintains all of his army, and he has a second force here in the center of the map. He could try to distract Astrea, especially with these medevacs, and try to slip in here, maybe towards the natural base, maybe into a mineral line, or even getting on top of the robo. With Marauders, we can chunk through some buildings, and there we go, we do scan! Colossus knocking down that pylon. Army heading towards that natural base. Is going to be spotted. Astrea in position. He has, of course, Stalkers here at the main. Colossus on the front lines. And ByuN is rotating around, looking for a way in. Throwing down the third CC behind this. Long distance mining even. Trying to catch up in the economy. And so far, ByuN hasn't committed. He backs off. And again, what's really important here is that this is all about positional play. ByuN hasn't lost anything. He hasn't attacked. He hasn't committed. He's been looking for an opening. He's been looking for a way in, but alas, he hasn't found one yet. But his army is still terrifying just because he's been building it up over time. And here we go. Astrea, oh my god. Astrea taking some tank shots to the face. Losing one Stalker for free. But he will force back the army. And ByuN, very mature move, he unsieges, he backs off. He doesn't want to be caught out, doesn't want to lose a fight needlessly. As a result, you can see here that both players are on an even economy, and ByuN has a supply lead. ByuN, he's actually got a better economy than that of the Protoss, so the pressure is suddenly on Astrea. We need a fourth. We need a fourth base, and we need one soon. Meanwhile, we throw down a Dark Shrine. DTs. Dark Shrine is on the way here at the natural. That is a good way to come back. Astrea is falling behind a little bit, and yeah, DTs that could wreak havoc here in the mineral lines. We do have 3 orbitals, so we do have potential for scans. There is a turret here in the main. War Prism going to be sneaking in from the right hand side. We have a turret here at the natural as well. No turret at the third base, but plenty of energy for scans. Army's moving out. We do have some sort of Marines. Scan does confirm the move out as well. We can see that Astrea does want to keep the attention on this main army because we have the backstab getting ready. We have Zealots and Dark Templar. Meanwhile, turret is thrown down in between the bases. This third base, there's turrets here as well. There's detection everywhere. DTs aren't going to get any damage done. We have Vikings patrolling this dead space to shut down any kind of prison play. ByuN is just looking so secure. Meanwhile, Astrea trying to find a way in. So far, unsuccessful. These nations, they do confirm the turrets. The sensor tower, the 4th base on the way. Likewise, Astrea getting his own 4th up and running. Now we have the 4th on the way for ByuN. Behind this, we have Ghosts in production for ByuN as well. Has been able to take up. We have +1 ship weapons for eventually Vikings, as well as... I was going to say Ravens, as well as Liberators. We will work towards those Liberation Zones soon. And that is not just double Robo Disruptor production. We have a 3rd Robo on the way for triple Disruptor production. My oh my. Astrea really just getting into the swing of things here. Refining his army. Getting to that late game. Stargate is on the way. +1 air attack as well. +1 air attack as well. And Astrea, he's getting ready for Skytoss. Skytoss is the next step. And Astrea looks like he has recognized just how passive, how defensive his opponent is. Meanwhile, the DCs are getting to the main. Massive warping into the main base. Probes are going down. SCVs even. Results, they go straight for the upgrades. They go straight for the E-bays. They don't quite get them. Oh, can we deny +3? It's going to be close. Ooh, we do not deny +3, but we get so many more SCVs here at the 3rd. ByuN pulled completely out of position. He wasn't ready for this at the same time. The main army pushing him forward, but it does run into some tanks. 2 tanks go down. The Novas, they pop off. 25 SCVs go down. For what? For Zealots and a couple of Dark Templar. 2 Dark Templar even survive. ByuN was doing so well getting up to this point, getting up to 4 base economy, getting up to a maxed out army even. But just like that, in one swift move, Astrea, he is up in the economy. And upon killing 2 tanks, he can push in. The defensive line here for ByuN is significantly weaker without those tanks. Good force fields. 4 Marauders go down. Novas! Not quite connecting. Some okay connections, but less than ideal. 1 Disruptor does go down. ByuN does avert disaster. Meanwhile, +1 air attack about to finish up, and carrier production has commenced. Astrea, it feels like he is 1 step ahead. For example, we have a fusion core on the way. This is for Liberators, for Liberator range, as we mentioned before. And Liberators, they are ideal for a ground toss army. They completely annihilate Stalkers, Colossus, Disruptors, everything that Astrea has. But as ByuN gets ready for Liberators, we have Astrea already working towards carriers. So really, instead of Libs, I mean, we'd still need Liberators, but we need Vikings more than anything. Meanwhile, the Dark Templar, they go back in. They get 4 SCVs as well as the turret. It creates room for Astrea. Viking count not looking too bad. Sensor tower goes down the Nova. Ooh, 2 ghosts. Oh my god. We don't have many ghosts to begin with. Bear that in mind. We have 5 ghosts in total, and for 2 to go down. Big pig off for Astrea. As he backs off, rotates back around. How many Vikings do we have? We have 6 Vikings, not too bad. That is good enough to deal with Colossus, but here we go. The carriers, they have arrived. And so far, unscouted. If they were scouted, we would see another 1, maybe 2 more starports. Again, we casted Astrea in WTL. We casted Astrea versus Sarah recently in WTL, but we also casted a TvP going to the late game, and massive Viking is what you want, is what you need. Astrea just making his way towards that 4th base. At the same time, ByuN going for a massive counterattack, but the recall does come in. ByuN a little bit too late there to pull the trigger, too late to go for those EMPs. Ambitious move. Disruptor gets picked up. Essentially, I don't know if you saw, but ByuN did EMP this base, but 1 second too late, which meant the recall did go up. Otherwise, this Nexus would have gone down. Here we go. Astrea going to be rotating over towards the center. Carriers are revealed. Liberators are on the way, plus 2 ship weapons as well. Decent EMPs with the Novas. Are going off. Not the best connections. Oh, that's a much better one, though. Good chunk of Marauders go down. Forced to slowly work through these turrets. ByuN trying to sneak out a 5th base. Quite an exposed 5th. But so far unscouted. So he's getting away with it. There it is. Second starport is up and running. We're making 4 Liberators at a time. Good EMP once again. Oh, but the Novas, they don't care about your EMP. More turrets are falling. But no big connections this time on the army, at least. Astrea is getting ready for a backstab towards the natural, but little does he know he's coming across. Oh, he doesn't know! He does not see the 5th. Barely doesn't spot it. Meanwhile, liberation zones, they have arrived. We can see Astrea rotating over towards the 3rd. And the prism does make its way in. Now, Astrea is maxed out, so we actually can't warp in too many units. The carriers, they wreak havoc. Liberators are going down. 12 SCVs as well. Oh, the Novas! They connect, and once again, very limited anti-air. Like big EMPs on the carriers, you can see that they are stripped of their shields. But the interceptors, they deal with everything else. Nervous into the mineral line. And ByuN, he's zoned away from his own 4th base. He's trying to engage. He does get on top of the Colossus. The Liberators, they go down. The carriers, they just go to town on them. And this planetary is forfeit. We're coming from behind. Big EMPs. The carriers, they're so low. But there's just not enough on the ground. Marines are falling. The Vikings as well. And it looks like Astrea, he has cleaned up the army. GG gets called. And Astrea will take game number 1. Whew. GG. Oh my god. GG, well played. Again, Astrea, tech-wise, 1 step ahead from his opponent, was able to start working on that transition, start working on that Skytoss transition a lot faster than normal once he realized that ByuN was just turtling up. It was essentially when ByuN was taking his 4th. When he was taking his 4th base, that is when Astrea threw down Stargate and started +1 air attack ahead of time. We did see a lot of posturing between the 2 armies, but again, the carriers are something that ByuN just was not quite ready for. He was, we mentioned at the time, he was just slightly 1 step behind. I was trying to be aggressive, and there were a couple of really good moments for ByuN, don't get me wrong. But likewise, Astrea doing such a great job here, not just attacking, but also sneaking in that with that warp prism, getting economic damage done, and keeping the attention of ByuN back at home. GG. GG, well played. And now we're working towards game number 2. Nice. Yeah. I see deep value in the chat. I'm not gonna lie, I had wiped that from my memory. Adepts versus Terran. If you remember, I remember someone made a clip of it. If you remember, we asked Nice about those Adepts against Terran. He specifically said that he just thought it was funny. Just thought it was, it was funny, you know. Give him credit. True. Game number 2 is gonna be on Hecate. Last week, didn't ByuN get a bunker up and 2 Reapers and Astrea immediately GG'd? Very possible, very possible. I mean, things can get really dire in the early game. That can occur, but it looks like his opponent has since learned from his mistakes. And here we go, spawning in the bottom left-hand corner of Hecate. We have the South Korean Terran player representing Shopify Rebellion. It is ByuN. And spawning in the top right-hand corner, we have his opponent. We have the American Protoss player representing Maturino Esports, leading the series 1-0. It is Astrea. Here we go. Astrea able to really flex his skill there in the late game of PvT. But there were so many layers to that game. I don't want to like hyperfixate on, you know, the fact that Astrea was able to get into Skytoss and was able to, you know, get up to a 4 and then 5 base economy up against ByuN and go toe-to-toe in the late game. Like, these are all true facts. That's, yeah, not wrong. But if you remember, it all started with ByuN going for a 3 racks. And it all started with ByuN getting scouted. Astrea was able to go into a fast Robo, into fast Colossus, shut down the 3 racks. ByuN had to transition into a 3-1-1 setup. into his double medevac timing, if you remember, and Astrea positionally was able to shut him down time and time again. Another eBay block coming in from ByuN, but it is scouted, and Astrea will shut it down. 2 games in a row. Again, I want to reiterate, eBay blocks in this matchup have become far more common. These past couple of weeks, eBay blocks have become so common, and I love that Astrea has adapted to it, has been very adamant about scouting. He even went for a low ground wall as well, just to make sure that he had a that he had a probe in position. He scouts, he denies, and he will expand where he wants to. Just to reiterate, just to quickly go over the advantage of the eBay block, we have seen many Terran players like ByuN, Pure, Clem comes to mind as well, where if they're able to get that eBay up and running, and if the Protoss is forced to expand at a third base location, then Terran players are just so good at abusing and punishing and just killing the Protoss then and there, just because of how exposed their natural is. And we can see that ByuN wanted to do that. He went for a single gas opener, delayed his CC, went for a factory. If ByuN was able to force the unnatural, this would have been a reactor swap into Cyclones. Now it should be into Hellions. There we go, Hellions are on the way, because ByuN is going for a proxy starport. He's trying to make use of his setup here, and obviously now he can't actually be as aggressive as he wanted to be, so time to turn some water into wine, go for a proxy starport, go for some drops. Of course, a very aggressive build here. We do see Astrea trying to get a scout off. He does get eyes on the Hellions, just barely. That is a bit of a tell. He doesn't see the natural, doesn't see additional gases, but seeing those Hellions, I'm sure Astrea is on notice back at home. A 3-gate opener before tech. Oh, not just 3 gateways, 2 adepts, they make their way across the map. They're looking to delay the CC on the low ground. They get one of the Hellions. Oh my god. And we could maybe even get another. CC is going to be delayed. Upon seeing even more Hellions coming out, again, Astrea, he should be wise to this. So he doesn't get another Hellion. Medevac comes out. Drop is on the way. 3 Hellions do one-shot workers. But we have a shield battery, we have a Stalker getting in position, and Astrea playing so safe. He delays his Twilight Council, he delays his Stargate to get into 3 gateways, just to warp in, just to have an army. Here we go, the Hellions have been spotted. We are going to try to drop right into that mineral line. Astrea warping in across the map instead. He's crazy, oh my god. He gets here just in time, delays the expansion, delays the bunker, Cyclone popping off, taking out one of those Stalkers. But this Hellion drop hasn't done anything. It can't do anything, it's just been zoned away. ByuN, his attention was back at home, and yes, he's going to get his expansion back up and running, but a very late expansion. Starport is floating back home, and based on the health on this starport, I don't see how we get any damage done. Oh, we're going to try and sneak in though. We're going to try and get some damage done, but no! Oh my god. Stalkers are ready for it. ByuN likewise hoping to catch this army if we get another warping of Stalkers. Without stim, this army is so vulnerable. Marines, they get caught off guard. Overextension out of ByuN, bleeds out 3 Marines. He's got 3 left in that bunker. And behind this, we're getting into a bit of a 2-1-1 setup. But just a really awkward start here for ByuN, just because of its failed proxy. And now Astrea is getting into a third. Getting into his third base. ByuN gonna try and harass across the map. It's a bit of a risky maneuver because it means that he's vulnerable back at home. But he is moving out, and likewise Astrea finally working on his tech. He went for a robo first once again into a bay, into Colossus. Stalkers are in position. They shut down one of the Cyclones. They're going to get a second as well. Very efficient trade here from Astrea. Still patrolling those Stalkers. Safety Immortal on the way. We got +1. We got Blink. A very similar setup here from game 1. Observer confirms the Raxes, confirms lack of stim, as Tech Lab is still on the way on that on that second Rax. And we have a continued tank production. So by the time ByuN moves out, he's going to have like 4 tanks. It's going to be a hefty army. It's going to be pretty intense. Astrea, though, he's aware. He's getting ready for it. He even has his observer to scout any kind of move outs. No, I was going to say a bold move for the observer to go over the Marines. ByuN sees, he scans, he does take down that observer. Very keen eyes out of ByuN. And that means that this move out is not spotted. It is not going to be scouted by the observer. Again, Astrea, he's aware of the tank army, but I'm sure he's hoping that ByuN doesn't push without stim. Stim, it just started. Our upgrades are just now on the way. But ByuN, he's going for a bit of an anti-timing, pushing out ahead of time. Trying to catch Astrea with his pants down. Astrea, though, he has a shield battery, has an overcharge, is in position for the most part. Scan does reveal that we do have a Liberator coming in. Tanks are getting within range. Big volley is going to be going off. A charge is not done, by the way, but we do get on top of the tanks. Oh my god, the Colossus is going to be hugging the tanks, actually. Oh my god. The Colossus does survive. The tanks go down, and without stim, these Marines, they do not pose a threat at all. Very nice control there out of Astrea. For those wondering, this Colossus should be dead. It should be dead. But Astrea, he intentionally was hugging the tanks with his Colossus to avoid any shots, which does keep the Colossus alive. And with that, Astrea, he's actually in a commanding position. This sim timing was supposed to hit with tanks, with 4 tanks even, but 3 of them went down already. ByuN going for a double drop into the main base. Oh, he's going to focus down that pylon. He's going to depower those gateways, deny the warp in. We're going straight for the mineral line. Probes are going down. I love it. We're focusing down stalkers. We're freeing up this drop. We're trying to anyway. Colossus does arrive, but the drop gets out. Oh no, they're Hellions. Hellions finally go in, and they finally go down as well. But that was a really good move out of ByuN. To kill 10 workers to depower some pylons, or depower some gateways, sorry, by killing pylons. Really nicely done. But Astrea is pushing. And back at home, this defensive position is not as strong as it once was. We only have 2 tanks. Charge is about to finish. That's a lot of Zealots, and there's just not enough on the ground. There's not enough SimCity. We dive on top of the first tank, and the second tank goes down as well. Even if this drop was back at home, we just don't have the firepower. Not anymore. The boys are being pulled into Colossus. Second Colossus is on the way. Vikings are being focused down, and Astrea is snowballing out of control. GG is going to get called, and Astrea will take the series 2-0. GG. Oh my god. GG, well played. Astrea popping off here. He didn't just take down ByuN, he 2-0'd ByuN. GG, well played. And to be fair, a lot of this is off of the back of ByuN being overly aggressive. To briefly talk about the series, 1, 3 Raxes are very out of fashion. So if you remember on game 1 on Oceanborn, ByuN going for a 3 Rax and then getting scouted and being shut down, it was a rough start for ByuN in that game, and it allowed Astrea to get himself up and running on 3 bases and look really robust in the early game to get into the mid game. Here in game number 2 as well, for ByuN to double down, delaying his expansion, going for a faster factory, and committing to that proxy starport as well, was a risky maneuver, and Astrea was all over it. As a result, ByuN was behind from the start of the game, right? Remember, his CC was late because of his opener, and it was delayed as well. You know, the Adepts came in, they were able to delay the expansion by quite a lot. The Hellion drop didn't do anything. It literally did 0 damage, eventually dying at the end of the game, and all these things, it just set ByuN a little bit behind, and a little bit further behind as well, and it allowed Astrea to really snowball out of control and get into a really comfortable position. GG, well played. Again, maybe ByuN being overly aggressive here against Astrea, and being punished for it as a result. Being punished in the end. Astrea showing off as well that, hey, you know, you gotta put some respect to the name, okay? Gotta respect Astrea, and I'm sure the next time they face, maybe we'll see some more standard openers out of ByuN against Astrea. I'm sure. With that, I believe that is Astrea making it to the semifinals. Does make it into the semifinals, and we divert our attention elsewhere to another TvP.